11 years, one laundromat, same car the whole time. If someone summarized your adult life in a single sentence, that's the sentence. And on paper, it sounds like nothing happened. It sounds like stagnation. What it actually is $1.9 million sitting quietly in an account nobody in your family has ever seen a statement from. The car is a 2014 Nissan Altima with 187,000 miles on it, a dent in the passenger door from a shopping cart in a parking lot 6 years ago that you never bothered fixing, and a check engine light that's been on so long you've forgotten what it was originally about. Your brother-in-law makes a joke about it at nearly every family gathering, something about how you should treat yourself already. You laugh along. You've heard the joke maybe 30 times. It's never once occurred to him that the reason you drive that car has nothing to do with what you can afford. The laundromat is the same one the whole time too. 19 machines. A corner unit in a strip mall your father used to drop you off in front of when you were a teenager, back when it was owned by a Vietnamese family who ran it for 2 decades before deciding to retire. You didn't buy it because you had a vision. You bought it because you were 23. Freshly out of a business degree nobody in your family could afford to be impressed by, since none of your cousins had gone that route either, and you needed something that would let you work with your hands and your head at the same time. Something real, something you could touch. You paid $112,000 for it, almost all of it borrowed against a small inheritance from your grandmother that your parents didn't know you'd use that way, plus a loan from a community credit union that specialized in lending to small business owners other banks wouldn't look at twice. The first 6 months nearly broke you. 2 machines failed within the same month. The dryer bank needed new vents that cost more than you'd budgeted for the entire first quarter. You worked the counter yourself most evenings after your day job, doing homework for a night class in the corner while customers folded laundry, because you couldn't yet afford to hire anyone. Year 1 netted $14,000. Not enough to quit your day job, not enough to tell anyone about with any real pride. Your mother asked once, gently, if you were sure this was a good use of your grandmother's money, and you told her yes, without being fully sure yourself. You sat with that uncertainty a lot that first year, driving home in the Altima you'd bought used 2 years earlier, wondering if you'd made an expensive mistake dressed up as an investment. There were nights that first winter when the heating bill for the laundromat alone nearly matched what the whole place had brought in that month, and you'd sit in your car in the empty lot after closing, doing the math over and over, trying to figure out if there was a version of this that didn't end with you quietly losing your grandmother's money, along with your own savings. You never told your parents about those nights. You didn't want to hand them one more thing to worry about, especially not something they'd already half warned you against. The Vietnamese family who sold you the place, the Nguyen's, stopped by twice that first year, unprompted, just to see how you were doing. Mrs. Nguyen showed you a trick with the dryer vents that saved you nearly $200 a month in gas costs, something the manual never mentioned and no consultant would have told you for less than a few $100s. She didn't ask for anything in return. She just said she remembered what the first year felt like and didn't want to watch you struggle with something she could fix in 10 minutes. But something happened around year 3 that you didn't expect. The laundromat stopped needing you. Not completely, but enough. You'd fixed what needed fixing, found a reliable part-time attendant, built relationships with a vendor who served your machines faster than the ones the previous owner used. The business started running the way a well-built system is supposed to run, mostly on its own, checking in on itself through you rather than depending on you standing over it every single day. That's when you started doing something almost nobody in your life knew about. You didn't buy a second laundromat. You didn't expand into real estate or start a new venture the way people assume ambitious people are supposed to. You took the net income month after month and you put nearly all of it into a boring, unglamorous mix of index funds and municipal bonds, the kind of portfolio a financial advisor twice your age would call conservative to the point of being almost apologetic about it. Your reasoning was simple, even if it wasn't exciting enough to explain at a dinner table. The laundromat was already the interesting part of your life, the part with risk, the part that required your attention and your hands. You didn't need your investments to be interesting too. You needed them to be quiet and reliable, the exact opposite of everything you'd watched happen to your father's savings during 2 different economic downturns he never fully recovered from, both times because he'd chased something that promised more and delivered less. By year 7, the laundromat was netting close to $71,000 a year, steady, seasonal but predictable, the kind of number that would have shocked your family if they'd known it, mostly because none of them had ever imagined a laundromat, of all things, could produce a number like that. You'd added a second row of high-efficiency machines that year, financed entirely out of retained earnings rather than another loan, which meant the business had officially stopped needing anyone's money but its own to keep growing. The portfolio, fed consistently for 4 years by that point, had crossed $600,000. You remember checking the balance on your phone sitting in the Altima in the laundromat parking lot, engine off, radio off, just sitting there for a minute processing a number that didn't match anything about how your life looked from the outside. Your cousin Hassan got engaged that year. At the engagement party, he stood by the dessert table describing the new car he'd just leased, a black SUV with financing terms he explained in more detail than anyone had asked for. He asked what you were driving these days, already knowing the answer, already smiling slightly the way people do when they think they're asking a question with an obvious punchline. You told him the Altima was still running fine. He laughed, said something about how you should treat yourself, the same joke your brother-in-law makes, the same joke you've absorbed so many times it barely registers anymore. You smiled, and let the moment pass, the way you let most moments like that pass. What Hassan didn't know, what nobody at that party knew, is that the Altima wasn't a symbol of what you couldn't afford. It was a decision, repeated every single year for 11 years, to not let a depreciating asset quietly bleed money out of a system you'd spent over a decade building with your own hands, and a laundromat's slow, steady income. Every year you kept driving it instead of upgrading was roughly $9,000 that stayed in the portfolio, instead of financing someone else's impression of you. There's a specific kind of loneliness in being underestimated by people who love you, and it doesn't announce itself dramatically. It shows up in small moments, like standing at a dessert table listening to your cousin's car payment plan, knowing you could pay off his lease in full without checking your balance first, and choosing to say nothing because correcting the record would require unpacking 11 years of decisions nobody at that party has the patience or the framework to actually understand. Your father found out you owned the laundromat outright, no remaining debt on it, back in year 9, purely by accident, when a mutual friend mentioned it in passing without realizing it wasn't common knowledge. Your father called you that night, not upset, just quiet in a way that surprised you. He asked why you'd never told him the loan was paid off. You told him you didn't think it mattered much, since it didn't change anything about how you were living. He was silent for a moment, then said something you've thought about often since. He said, "I always thought that place was struggling. I've been worried about you for years." That conversation sat with you longer than almost anything else that's happened in this whole 11-year stretch. Not because it revealed anything about your finances, but because it revealed how completely your quiet had been read as failure instead of restraint. Your father hadn't assumed you were hiding success. He'd assumed you were hiding struggle, and had been carrying that worry silently the same way you'd been carrying the actual numbers silently, two people sitting on opposite sides of the same silence, each misunderstanding what the other one meant by it. You told him a little more after that, not everything, but enough. You showed him the year-end summary from your accountant, a plain-spoken woman named Nadia who's handled your books since year 2. He looked at the number for a long time without saying anything, the same way you had the first time Nadia sent it to you. Then he asked, quietly, if you were happy. You told him yes, genuinely, which surprised you a little to realize was completely true. You still drive the Altima. The check engine light is still on. You still work the counter some evenings, not because you have to anymore, but because there's something in the rhythm of folding towels and making change that keeps you tethered to the version of yourself who started this with $14,000 and a lot of uncertainty. The portfolio crossed $1.9 million this spring, a number Nadia mentioned almost in passing during your quarterly call, the same understated way she's delivered every number for 11 years. Hassan's still driving a leased SUV, on his third one now, still making the same joke every time he sees your car. You still smile and let it pass. Some jokes aren't worth correcting, especially when the punchline you're actually sitting on is worth more than most people at that dessert table will ever fully understand. Mrs. Nguyen passed away 2 years ago. You went to the funeral, sat near the back, and thought about the dryer vent trick that saved you $200 a month during the year you needed it most. Her son runs a different business now. Nothing to do with laundromats, but he still waves when he drives past yours. And you still wave back. A small, unspoken thread connecting 11 years of quiet decisions to a woman who never knew how much that 10-minute favor actually ended up being worth. 11 years, one laundromat, same car the whole time. On paper, it still sounds like nothing happened. Underneath it, quietly, almost everything did.